Welcome to the Growth Spurt, a weekly AI podcast by the Second Baptist Church of Ann Arbor. This week, we're diving into Reverend Mara Bonds' sermon, Keeping Your Peace.
Right.
Delivered this past Sunday.
You know.
It's Advent.
Yeah.
We're all thinking about the year's end. And honestly, this sermon really struck a chord with folks.
It was powerful, wasn't it?
It really was.
And you know, right off the bat, Rev Bonds does something really interesting.
Yeah.
She acknowledges her academic background.
Right.
She's clearly a brilliant woman.
Yeah.
But then says straight up, all those degrees don't mean much. When she's up there sharing the word.
Right.
It was like she was leveling with everyone you know.
Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah.
Like she was saying, listen, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Fancy titles aside. And then she goes right into those readings from Isaiah. Chapter 26, verses 3 and 12.
Yeah.
Both about finding peace, even when things are tough.
Exactly.
But then she drops this disclaimer, saying this one's personal.
Oh, yeah.
Might make some folks squirm.
Yeah.
Even joked you could pretend it was about your cousin if it got too real.
That's what hooked me.
Right.
Why the need for that heads up.
Yeah.
Because what unfolds is Reverend Bonds laying bare her own struggles with faith.
Oh, yeah.
She even calls herself a disgruntled Christian nationalism, the political climate injustices we see every day.
Right.
It's clearly weighing heavily on her.
And she didn't shy away from talking about her own anxieties.
No, she did not.
Especially about women in leadership, Black women in particular.
Yeah.
And that thing about the Department of Education possibly being eliminated.
Yeah.
You could feel the tension in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I found fascinating is that she doesn't stop at just naming these issues.
Yeah.
She talks about her frustration with other Christians who aren't engaging with these hard topics.
Yeah.
That takes guts to call out your own community like that from the pulpit.
It does. So we've got Reverend Bonds, the self-proclaimed disgruntled Christian, admitting this sermon is going to get personal.
Yeah.
All against the backdrop of a world that feels kind of chaotic.
Right.
Where does she even go from there?
Well, she brings in this incredibly vivid story, something that happened to her the week before. And it becomes this bridge between her personal turmoil and the core message of the sermon.
Yeah.
Finding peace.
You mean the story about the car suddenly appearing at the red light?
Yes.
That one gave me chills.
I know,
1 minute, nothing. Then, bam, a whole car in front of her.
And nobody saw it coming, right?
No.
No screeching tires, no explanation.
Yeah.
She even said the other drivers were looking at her like she was the one who'd lost it. Now think about why that image is so powerful.
Okay.
It's unsettling.
Yeah.
It makes you question your senses. Kind of like how life can throw you curveballs out of nowhere.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's like, even when we think we're in control, things can happen that shake us to our core.
Exactly. And that feeling of unease, that lack of control, that's precisely what Reverend Bonds uses to lead into her 3 key points for finding peace amidst the storms of life.
All right, let's dive into those.
Okay.
What's the first one?
The first point is, let God keep you.
Okay.
She talks about how we humans, herself included, want to rant and rave, fix things ourselves. Yeah. But ultimately, she emphasizes surrendering control.
Okay.
Especially when things feel out of control.
I loved how she described that moment of surrender, being told to sit down in the spirit by a higher power.
Right.
Almost like a parent calming down a frustrated child. It was funny, but so relatable.
That's Rev Bonds' gift, isn't it?
It is.
Taking these complex theological ideas about surrender and divine providence and making them so accessible. It's like, yeah, we may not be able to control the world around us, but we can choose to trust in something bigger than ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially given all the anxieties she was talking about earlier. So what about the second point?
Okay.
What does she tell us to do to keep our peace?
The second point is stayed, steadfast, and fixed.
Okay.
Think of it like this. If let God keep you is about letting go. This point is about what we hold on to.
Okay.
It's that deep-rooted faith that allows you to weather any storm.
She used that image of a tree with strong roots, right?
They did, yeah.
It might bend in the wind.
Yeah.
Lose some leaves. But that core connection to the earth keeps it standing tall.
Yeah.
I can see why that resonated with people.
It's a powerful image of resilience. Especially given the challenges Reverend Bonds outlined earlier. It's not about ignoring the problems of the world,
right,
but having that unshakable foundation that allows you to face them head on.
Okay, so we have let God keep you, surrendering control, and stayed steadfast and fixed, holding on to our faith.
Right.
What's the third piece of the puzzle?
The third point is, if the world didn't give it, the world can't take it.
Oh,
and this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, I remember this part.
Yeah.
It's about the true source of our peace.
No,
right?
Exactly.
It's not about stuff we accumulate, but something much deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she drives this home with a series of questions that really make you think, where did what you have come from? Did you earn it? Did you wake yourself up this morning? These questions force you to confront just how much is truly outside of your control.
Right. And how much we take for granted.
Yeah.
I remember feeling a little uncomfortable during that part. Like, okay, point taken, Reverend Bonds.
Right.
What hit me was the implication that if we understand that everything is a gift, then losing things, even if it's hard, doesn't have to destroy our peace.
That's a profound insight, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like she's saying, your peace isn't tied to the things of this world, so the world can't steal it from you.
Wow.
But to really get this point, we need to delve into how she uses that unsettling story of the car to illustrate it.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that in part 2.
Okay. Remember that unsettling story about the car?
Oh, yeah.
Appearing out of nowhere? It wasn't just a random anecdote.
Right.
It was a brilliant way to set up this idea that so much of life is beyond our control.
It's like she was saying, hey, if a whole car can materialize out of thin air, what makes you think you've got a handle on everything else?
Right?
It definitely makes you question your sense of security.
Exactly. And that's where the third point.
Okay.
If the world didn't give it, the world can't take it. Becomes so powerful when you realize that everything, even your very breath, is a gift.
Right.
Well, that changes how you view loss, doesn't it?
It's like she's saying that true peace isn't about clinging to things, but about recognizing the source of those blessings in the first place.
Right.
It's a different kind of security, one that comes from knowing you're not ultimately in charge.
And that's a radical idea, especially in a culture that constantly tells us we need to hustle, achieve, and accumulate more to find happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Reverend Bonds is turning that whole notion on its head.
It's a message that feels especially relevant during Advent.
Oh, absolutely.
Here we are bombarded with messages
Yeah.
about the perfect holiday, the perfect gifts, the perfect family gatherings.
Right.
And Reverend Bonds is reminding us
Yeah.
that true peace comes from something much deeper than all of that.
Absolutely. She's connecting this idea of finding peace
Right.
to the very essence of the Christmas story. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, wasn't born into a world of comfort and security.
Right.
He was born into chaos, into a world where power and control were everything.
And yet there's this profound message of peace that transcends those circumstances.
Yes.
It's like she's saying, look, if peace was possible, then in the midst of all that uncertainty, it's possible for us now too.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just about feeling peaceful on the inside, right?
Right.
It's about how that inner peace translates into action.
Right.
Remember that Reverend Bonds didn't shy away from talking about the tough stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Injustice, inequality, the challenges facing her community.
It's like she was saying, okay, we've talked about finding peace within ourselves. Now what are we going to do with it?
Exactly. It's that disgruntled Christian energy coming back in, but this time it's channeled into a call to action.
Right.
She's not letting anyone off the hook, least of all herself.
And that's what makes this sermon so compelling, right?
Yes.
It's not just a feel-good message about inner peace. It's a challenge to take that peace and go out into the world, to fight for justice, to be a source of comfort and support for those who need it most.
And she does all of this with such incredible skill, weaving together personal anecdotes, scripture, even those hymns that got stuck in her head. She's a master storyteller.
She is.
And that's what makes her message so impactful.
It's like she's inviting you into a conversation, not just delivering a lecture. And the honesty, the vulnerability she shared, it created this sense of shared experience in the room. You could tell people felt seen and heard.
And isn't that what we all crave, especially during times like these?
Yeah.
To know that we're not alone in our struggles, that someone else gets it,
Right.
That's where real connection happens, and that's where real change begins.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into keeping your peace,
Yeah.
I think the question we're left with is this. How do we take this message beyond the walls of the church and into our everyday lives?
That's a great question, and one I think Reverend Bonds would encourage us all to ponder.
Yeah?
Where does our peace come from?
Right.
And once we find it, how do we share it with the world? Like, she's giving us a roadmap, you know?
Yeah.
Surrender control, hold on to your faith, and remember that true peace comes from a source beyond the world's grasp.
Right.
But the journey doesn't stop there.
Right. It's not enough to just feel peaceful.
Yeah.
She's pushing us to go further.
Yeah.
To become peacemakers, to embody that peace in a world that desperately needs it.
And that's where those 3 points become even more powerful.
Okay.
When you let go of the need to control everything, you open yourself up to the possibilities of God working through you.
Right.
When you stay rooted in your faith, you have the strength to stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard.
And when you truly understand that your peace comes from a source that can't be taken away, well, that gives you a whole different kind of courage.
Yes. It's like you're free to act, to love, to serve without fear of losing what truly matters.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
And it's one that I think resonates with the heart of the Christmas story. Jesus, born into poverty and uncertainty, became the ultimate example of peace that transcends circumstances.
That's what makes this sermon so timely.
It really is.
Especially during Advent.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with messages about creating the perfect holiday,
yeah.
finding the perfect gifts.
Right.
But Reverend Bonds is reminding us that true peace isn't found under a tree or at the bottom of a stocking.
It's a gift that comes from a much deeper place.
Yes.
And it's a gift that we're called to share with the world.
That's right.
Think about the impact we could have if we all took that message to heart.
Imagine a world where instead of fighting for control, we surrender to a higher purpose. Instead of clinging to things, we share our blessings generously.
Right.
Instead of letting fear dictate our actions, we lead with love and compassion.
That's the kind of world Rev Bonds is calling us to create.
It is.
And it starts with each of us right here, right now.
That's right.
So as we go back into our busy lives this week,
I
think we should all be asking ourselves that question Reverend Bonds posed. Where does my peace come from? And once we have an answer, what are we going to do about it?
That's right.
How are we going to be peacemakers in our families, our communities, and in the world at large?
Because ultimately, that's what it means to keep your peace. Not just to find it, but to share it.
Right.
To let it overflow and touch the lives of everyone around you.
Go in peace, be blessed, and may the joy of Jesus be yours. See you next